All right, so welcome back. And now we're going to dig deeper into some of the secondary NMAP flags and what they mean and how we use them. So, in this particular section, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with showing you some additional flags and how they work. But then at the end here, I'm going to show you how you can expect to see this, in some type of exam format or something when you're tested on it. And I want you to understand the depth that CompTIA wants you to understand this material at. I'm not going to try to give you exact questions or anything like that, but I want you to see the depth at which you need to know the tool. So what we're going to do first is I want to introduce you to the fast scan option. So if we scan our dot 4 target, and this is going to take us to an important question. How many ports would you say that NMAP scans by default? Now, there are 65,535 possible TCP ports for services to listen on. How many does NMAP scan if you don't tell it the number to scan? The answer is 1,000, right? And let me prove that to you. If we scan dot 4, it tells us there's 973 closed. And if you count the ones that are open, you will find that this number right here of open ports equals exactly 27, which totals out to be 1,000. Now, if we wanted it to scan all 65,535 ports, because there is a value in that, let me just kind of show you. We could do that with two things. We could do -P 0 through 65535, like so. And that will scan all 65,535 ports. But there is a shorter option, a shorter flag that will allow us to do the same thing. So what I want you to kind of get baked in is we can say -P and then give it the entire range of 65,535 ports. And as you can see, the result says 65,501 are closed. And if you added up the ones that show up as open, I can guarantee you it's going to be exactly 34 because it's 65,535 total ports. But the short way to do that, instead of spelling it out, you could literally just say -P-, and the end result will be the exact same thing. So again, this is an important flag to where you force NMAP to check all ports because it's not going to do that on its own by default. And that's an important designation there to understand. And it's also important that you remember that specific flag as well. And as you can see, the results still say the same thing here. Technically, I mean, because we left out port 0 when we did the -P-. Okay. Now, what about going down, scanning less ports? Watch this. You'll see a lot of people that will do a -F flag, and this is another important secondary flag that you need to know. The -F by itself is short for fast scan. Now watch how fast it scans. Isn't that fast? Because look at the difference. It took it 0.19 seconds. Now, if I don't give it the -F flag, it takes it 1.42 seconds, like 7 or 8 times as long. What's the difference? Well, look at the number of closed ports advertised here. Now I'm going to do it again with the -F, the fast scan. Look at the number of closed ports here. What it did is when you give it that -F flag, it drops from doing the 1,000 most common ports to doing the top 100 most common ports. So it's speeded up by scanning a lot less ports. So you have to decide now, is that acceptable or not? Because do you want to sacrifice speed for accuracy and thoroughness? Sometimes this is totally okay, sometimes it's not. Because if you look at the 100 that it scanned and the ones that it found open, they're pretty common services. But there's all of these ones that you don't know about that may be open as well. So this is kind of a game time decision. So remember, -F, capital F, is how you have it do a fast scan. Now, what if I wanted to tell it to scan a different amount of ports? We have a few options. NMAP does accept that if you say scan ports 80 and 445. I can do that and just scan those two ports. You can also give it a range. I can say scan port 79 through port 120, and it'll show me all the ports that are open in that range. So you do have those options. But what if I wanted to scan the top 75 ports? We could do that. I could do this right here. I could tell NMAP dash top dash ports and then do 75. And it only scanned the top 75 ports. Because if you look at what's left, we have 58 closed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 open. 17 plus 58 is 75. Okay, so you have this flexibility, but you need to remember this flag and this option. Even if I said 85, it shouldn't matter, because what you should be keying on is the dash top ports. And if I take that and make it 80, if you add up what's open with what's closed, it should equal 80 exactly. Now, why am I stressing this? Why am I saying this is important? The reason is because these are some of the things that you're going to be expected to know on whatever exam you may be testing or taking, and you're going to have to know how to use them in a real world scenario. Remember, this exam is for people that have got 3 to 4 years experience. So let me show you an example of what that might look like. So if I gave you the following, if I did this scan, and remember the SV does version identification. What if I were to show you just the results of the scan and then instruct you to create or craft for me the command to get those results? Or what if I just asked you, in these results that we see here, did this person use the SV flag or no? Did they use the dash top ports flag or no? Or did they use the dash top ports? Like, what was the flags that were used to generate the scan? You should be able to take any NMAP scan output and reconstruct the actual scan syntax that produced that specific output. Now, this is not a test, just a testing. This is something you should be able to do anyways if you're using the tool and you've been using it for 3 to 4 years, right? And we'll see these results here in just a moment. Now, part of why I'm stressing this and kind of digging into it is because you don't want to be caught by surprise getting on a test or even getting in the field doing a pen test and not really have mastered the tool. This is one of the most important things that you can do as far as the trade, is actually mastering the tools that are used in the trade. The other part comes with time. There's no shortcut for experience, but you can definitely help to speed that process up by truly mastering the tools that you're using. And we're going to see here as NMAP wraps up on this scan that it's actually doing all these things that we're telling, and it's just taking a little while, because remember, the SV part is where it's actually interrogating the open ports and seeing what the service is that's coming back. All right, so we could see the results here. Now, are you comfortable looking at these results that I'm highlighting and reconstructing the scan that generated these results? Because I would look at this and say, all right, it shows 63 ports are closed. Let me see how many are open. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's 17, or it appears to be 17 ports open. Okay. There's 63 that's closed. So that means that someone had to do dash dash top ports 80 here, because if you add 17 to 63, you get 80. So I start at the very top of the output and I read what flag would have caused that output. And I know that that flag would have to be dash dash top ports 80. Now I can also see that it's giving me version identification over here to the right. Well, I know that to get version identification information, you generally have to do the SV flag. So at a minimal, I know those two are there, right? That's how you reconstruct that. That's how you deal with those types of situations where you're being tested on the thoroughness of the tool. And look at, you need to be this solid on all the tools that are in the objectives in the Pen Test Plus objectives list. You need to be this solid on every single one of them. Now, that's tough. It's going to take a lot of practice, but now you kind of know the blueprint of how you get there, and it won't be that bad if you do it. The last scan that I want to show you before we wrap this session is the aggressive scan. So if I did let's just do port 80, and I want you to compare the difference. If I did a dash A to port 80, it's very similar to an SV scan, but it gives me a lot more information back. So remember, the SV scan would just give me this. As a matter of fact, let's do that and compare it side by side. So see how the SV gave me very limited information, just gave me basically the service. But the dash A, the aggressive scan up here, gave me that plus a whole lot more. It did a deep scan and get a whole lot more information than just the SV scan did. So they're like cousins, but the aggressive scan is like the big, strong cousin. And the version scan or SV scan is like the smaller, skinnier cousin that just does a little bit less. Okay. Now, another thing that you might run into that's important to know is verbosity level. I'll cover that really quickly. It's pretty easy concept to understand. If I scan port 80, for example, it comes back and gives me that port 80 is open. If I do that with one V, that's a lowercase v, it increases the verbosities. Now, I need to be clear about something. It's not changing what the scan is doing as far as what it's sending out. It's changing how much of the results and how much of the information it shows you. So when you add a dash V, you're not making the scan bigger or noisier. You're just looking more at what's coming back. Most of the stuff that comes back from a scan is ignored and never shown to you in the output. When you add that dash V, you're saying, I want you to increase the amount of information that you give me in that output. So if I do a dash V, look at what happens. Now it still shows me this information, but it gives me a little more information about how it did the scan. What happens if I add two Vs? It's going to give me more information. Notice there's only three fields: port, state, and service. But if I add a second V here, now it added a fourth field to give me the reason why it's saying this port is open. And it's saying the fact that we sent a SYN and we got back a SYN-ACK means this port is open. Now, a little point of interest there, the fact that it has a TTL of 128, that almost always means it's a Windows machine that sent the response. If it was 64 for the TTL, it'd likely be Linux. This is not 100%, but it's something that you can always look at to kind of give yourself an idea of what you're looking at in the packet captures. Hopefully you enjoyed this section as much as I did relaying this information to you. We're going to stop it right there, and we'll come back to you with the next NMAP section right in the next part here. Thanks for watching.